Welcome to Scale Her Up, the show for female business owners and leaders who want to grow profitable, sustainable businesses without burning out. I'm Dr. Brenda Hector, a business growth specialist helping women develop themselves and their businesses so they can achieve their goals and enjoy the lifestyle they dream of. In each episode, you'll hear inspiring stories, honest conversations, and practical strategies to help you start, grow, or scale your business. If you're new here, hit follow so you don't miss an episode and come and join our Scale Her Up Facebook community to keep the conversation going. Today, I'm very pleased to say that I've got Emma Bohan, the Managing Director of IMS Heat Pumps, with me today. Emma, thank you very much for coming on the show.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
We always start with a bit of information about your business. Tell me what you do at IMS Heat Pumps.
The clue is in the name. We do heat
Yeah.
pumps. For those who may not know, and there are still a lot of people out there, heat pumps are the renewable energy alternative to the gas boiler. So we're removing fossil fuels and replacing that with an electric-based technology that will heat your home and your hot water. The view that electricity, we are generating an awful lot of that from renewable energy now, wind, wave, solar. And so we've been doing heat pumps, air source, ground source, and water source from Scotland and Sheffield bases since the company was originally Scottish, set up in 1997. And then we've expanded down to Sheffield, which is, well, just outside Sheffield, which is where I sit. And then latterly, we now install solar PV and batteries, which again, in our sector is known as the Holy Trinity. You
Mhm.
use electric, your solar panels give you free electric, your battery can store that free electric for when you want to use it, and your heat pump can run off it. So between those three technologies, not only are you better for the planet, but you're saving money on your fuel bills.
Fabulous. And are you delivering that to homes or to businesses or to both?
Yeah, so the majority of our clients are domestic end users as they are known. And yeah, so that's people in their own homes. A lot of our clients, 60% of our business is what we would call the self-build renovation. So that's
Okay.
building their own homes. We've done our fair share of grand design type properties and some actual grand design properties that are featured in the magazine or on the TV. But yeah, so people building their own homes and people who are doing quite substantial renovations, whether that's big wraparounds or turning a bungalow to a two-story or taking a house, an older house, real back to brick and giving it a good facelift. Yeah, that's the majority of our business. We do what we would call small commercial. So that would be for us anything under 100 kilowatts. I'm getting all jargony now. If you think that a normal domestic property is about 12 kilowatt heat pumps, between 7 and 12, a 100 kilowatt heat pump, you're talking big sheds or large homes. We've got a lot of larger homes that are working with some of those bigger heat pumps. But we did a tractor showroom. You'd be surprised how much underfloor heating we put in that so that the tractors can be warm as the farmers wander around and choose their new favorite toy. We have done a PPE warehouse business. So those are the kind of what we would call smaller commercial jobs.
And I guess that you're saving the planet.
Oh yeah.
That's such an important. It's just
Yeah.
so important, isn't it? Yeah.
It is. There are still stubbornly people out there who believe climate change is some kind of hoax. I don't. This business doesn't. A lot of people don't, including governments across the world. And out with that, even if you think climate change is a hoax, then surely current reliability or reliance, sorry, on imported gas as a way of heating our homes is definitely something that we should be moving away from. The result of the end of fossil fuels, it might not be my lifetime, might not be yours, might not even be my daughter's or my granddaughter's, but it is going. And on that basis, surely having a reliance on a technology that uses something we can create from nothing almost, solar, wind, wave, feels better with or without any kind of climate championing behind it. But yes, one heat pump at a time. We take out gas boilers and we decarbonise our UK homes.
No, it's a great thing you're doing. It's yeah, fabulous. So you're the MD.
Um,
Tell me about your journey in IMS heat pumps then.
yeah, the heat pump company, they said, it'll be fun, they said. It was never on the cards. Clearly, running a heat pump company wasn't even in the teacher's careers guidance when I was at school. Famously, my geography teacher told me I wouldn't make a Woolworths girl. Interesting that Woolworths has gone before I have, but here we are now, Mr. Geography teacher. Thanks for that. I stepped into this by accident, literally. I had gone to university to do hotel and catering management. That was what I felt I was going to have a career in. And then I spectacularly quit just before the millennium and had a great time in London and came back and was like, oh,
So, let me ask you about that then. So, you went to uni and realized that it wasn't for you.
no, I went to university and that was my career. I actually stepped out of university, never completed my course. I did a sandwich course and went over to America where I did a year's worth of management training with the Hilton and came back. I extended my stay there. So I deferred my third year, came back, got a job as a restaurant supervisor, assistant restaurant manager, and then thought I'll just do this for a bit until my course restarts. And then I'm thinking, if I go back to university and do another 2 years and leave, I'm going to get a job as an assistant restaurant manager because nobody's going to hire a graduate as manager. And yet here I am doing that job already. So
Yeah.
I stayed with that company and progressed with them. And I was doing like ops management at a hotel, living away. And yeah, the schedule was discussed over the millennium, which was just it was a big hospitality event of the year, parties after parties, events after events to celebrate the millennium. Obviously, on the back of Christmas, which is already a big thing, and New Year. And so I think my rota looked like something like go home at the beginning of November and then go home again in January. And I was like, I don't think so. I was like 23 at the time.
Oh, you want to be celebrating the millennium.
It wasn't so much like if you've ever done a big stint in hotel and catering,
Yeah.
you know that the holidays are not for you, they're for somebody else. So it wasn't so much that, it was the length of time between actually going home. I've worked many Christmas days and many New Year's Eves, and that's been fine. But yeah, not going home to see your family for weeks and then just felt I'm not doing this. And yeah, I quit and went down to London with a friend for the millennium. I had a great time, came back and was like, seems to have ballsed up my career here. Now what? Interestingly, then I did some temp work with the civil service, which probably scarred me for life in the kind of lack of accountability over budgets, having been in an industry where you have to account for every napkin. Can I have this pen? It's 30 quid. What about a bic? Anyway, yeah, that aside, I had at school done some work experience with my father's friend who had a business development company. And he found out that I was looking for a job and he was like, come work for me. You did amazing while you were at work experience. And so I ended up with that business development company for 14 years. And within that, about 2001, 2002, they always used to do a manufacturing survey when we had a manufacturing base in South Yorkshire, and that was to fax. We would send a mail shot. I don't think do these things still happen now? Using WordStar 5.1 out to all the manufacturing companies in Rotherham, Barnsley, Sheffield, and Doncaster. And we would ask them to fax back their response. And that was about them telling us where their pinch points were, the things that they were bothering them, the problems that they wanted to solve. And as a business development consultancy, we would go and try and look at where those technologies exist or where those bottlenecks could be opened up. And overwhelmingly, one year, those responses were all around this weird view of saving energy and renewable, recycling type stuff. And this was literally when I think we had some people bobbling on about CFCs being a bit bad for us, and we were doing a bit of nappy recycling. That was the height of our climate awareness as the general public. And so it was quite novel that companies were already looking at this. So the
Mhm.
guy, Steve, who I was working for, he developed a program that went out to look for really innovative technologies and businesses in this space in order to support them to grow. And so there's a couple of businesses in Sheffield now that owe that kind of start to that program. But one of them in particular that led me here was called Eco Heat Pumps. And this was a guy who was doing some stuff with these weird heat pump things that took energy from the ground and then made that energy better. It basically takes heat out of the ground and then makes it hotter in order to have a use in your home. And he was split between Cornwall and Oxford. We brought him to Sheffield, supported him to grow. And which he did, a very successful business. And in 2008, he took a manufacturing exit. And at that point, I think he had about 36% of the market in the UK. albeit a much smaller market, but he was the main player. And I maintained a friendship with him. He stayed in Sheffield, and I'm still friends with him today. I continued to work for that business development consultancy. We did quite a lot of work with small and medium businesses, a lot of work with individual entrepreneurs trying to get stuff off the ground. And that kind of, those things just stuck with me. They rub off on you, looking at your market, looking at your technology, looking at your finance, looking at your returns, product price, all of those kind of things that we would take companies through to get them off the ground and then to help them on to the next step. And then Bill came to me in 2013 and said, I think I'm going to do it again because the market is exactly the same as when I left it in 2008. Nothing has really changed. But I'm not going to do it because I'm retired. So I'm going to get these guys who I've worked with before, push them all together because then they're about the same size as I was when I was exited. And if we invest in that and grow them, like we did with my company, then what we've got is a real challenger. It was like fit the best, fit Everest, but for heat pumps, we were going to
Mhm.
be that company. And I got them some funding, but it was all these things always take longer than you think. And it wasn't until 2016 that they launched that. And at that point, Phil phoned me up and I had stepped into a more part-time role. I'd had a child. She was still not quite at school. He just said, right, we're ready for you. You're going to quit your job and come and do this heat pump malarkey. And it just happened at the right time, really. So I was like, okay, all right, I'll do that.
So I guess you've built up lots of the skills that a business owner or the entrepreneurial skills, if you like, through your role in business development, through that employed role.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate for anybody who's worked in catering being able to do anything. Because I swear to goodness gracious me, if you have had any career in catering, especially frontline, face to face, then your customer service is second to none. Your logistics is beyond. You can juggle all the plates on all of the tables of all of the courses of a 3 or 4 turnaround Valentine's Day and still make it memorable. But then within that, I also had really good IT skills, which is something. I'm 51. My experience of computers was wheeling a BBC in on a trolley. I'm being shown it. But I had got those IT skills. You put the work ethic. I did it myself for years. It was a 6-2-6-2. You'd start at 6, you'd finish at 2, you'd start at 6, you'd finish at 2, and then you'd do it again. These people, I went and stepped out of catering. I was like, what's 40 hours? What do you do with your time in the evening?
Yeah.
What's the weekend for? It was like, no, this, oh, it was just a complete anathema to me. So you've got the work ethic. You've got people who can deal with people literally screaming in your face because they don't like something that's happening at the table, and you can handle that with the calmness that is required. You can juggle all of those plates and throw some admin skills in, and you're the back office wonder of any business. Absolutely sure. In my family, entrepreneurship was what happened. My granddad owned his own
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
My father owned, and my mother, they owned their own business. My uncles owned their own business. I was surrounded by people who owned their own business. So it wasn't a frightening thought
No.
at all to step into that role. But yeah, for sure, understanding the kind of rubrics of taking an idea and then making that idea valid and then delivering what it is in those particular areas in order to move a business forward is what I learned in the job that I was in previously.
So did you come straight in as MD?
No, I came in as operations manager, so I was supposed to be working behind the scenes. As I say, you're the back office wonder. You can do anything. You will complete, you will finish, you will start, you will view stuff. You're looking at processes all the time because catering, especially a good catering, the processes work. This is what triggers that. This is what calls that. This is what's the next step. This is how it finishes. So being able to see those processes and then document them and create them from scratch. Again, anybody who's been in catering, I think you have that skill set just drilled into you. So yeah, that was my role. And the business at that particular time was run by a chap who had a really great idea, which is still being discussed today. So ahead of his time, 10 years ago, heat as a service. And that kind of was his focus, which meant that actually the day-to-day running of this business, this actual installation business, was a secondary concern. And became very clear to me because mainly the shit always landed. Oh, sorry, I'm a bit of swearing. The shit
Oh,
always
that's
landed
fine.
on my desk to deal with. That there was nobody other than me dealing with the shit. And that if we didn't get a handle on the running of the business soon, it was just going to be a massive show. And so I was effectively the person running the day-to-day installation business and making sure that what we sold was correct, what the customer thought they were buying was correct, what was installed was correct, and that was what brought the money in. And they made me MD for that purpose, which was great, but it was unfortunate that at that particular time, the business had been over-invested on the pursuit of heat as a service. And whilst the business between myself and the great people who I still work with today were moving that big ship around, because it was a big ship, it wasn't a small ship. We're not talking like a couple of 100,000, we were a couple of million. We had 40 employees from 3 different areas, and we were moving this ship around to be a better, profitable business, but the funding killed it. And so we had to put that into administration. So at that particular time, I've got a chap whose business from Scotland had been brought into this new world order, a business from Sheffield, and myself. There is no business. It's now with the hands of the administrators. And so we all go to Phil's house, moan at Phil. What have you done? And Alan, original business IMS had been from
Mhm.
1997. He says, I'm going back to Scotland and do it again myself. And Lee, whose business was in Sheffield, was like, well, I'm never working for anybody else again. I'm off to do my own. At which point I am totally jobless. And I'm like, here it is. So I literally did my Dragon's Den pitch to these guys and said, look, what we had going towards the end of this business was the makings of the best business ever. And you were brought together to deliver a bigger company with an exit strategy. And I believe that I can still do that for you. Give me 24 hours to crunch some numbers where I can show you the possibility. We're better together. You're going to replicate 2 lots of insurances and 2 lots of admin and 2 lots of processing there. And we can do this. We've already got it. I've got it. This is what I did. And so I sat up until daft o'clock in the morning, crunching all these numbers and said, look, I think I should go and buy it back off the administrator and start again. And that was the reconfiguration of IMS heat pumps in 2019 that led me to be here today.
Wow. Yeah, what a story actually from, yeah, interesting. The business was focusing on something that wasn't, I guess the market wasn't ready for yet.
Market
And
wasn't ready for it yet. The premise of heat as a service is a bit like your mobile phone. Yeah, you pay for the capital cost of your mobile phone, and then you have your phone calls. And so, you go to EE02, it's going to cost you £1,000, and then but that's broken down over 54 quid a month or something like that. And that includes your tax. So, you've got your capital cost of your heat pump, but then you break that down over a monthly payment. And then that monthly payment should be, and it's providing you with your heat and your hot water. So it's instead of your utility bill, but it's also paying for the capital cost of the
yeah,
equipment. But then not just that, if you have heat as a service operating on a much wider scale, so if you can, because you can then AI heat pumps into being more efficient, which is just coming to the market now, but this was premised in 2016, then you can make the best of the efficiency savings for the customers. But also, if you do this correctly, basically, when the Queen is having this chat at 3 o'clock on a Christmas day and loads of people want to listen to that, or in between the FA Cup final or whatever, whenever there's a big public moment and everybody goes, oh, it's a break now, I'll stick kettle on. And the spike in energy use goes through the roof. If you've turned some 10,000 heat pumps off, you don't need to that coal-fired power station. You don't need to have that backup ready and waiting for this spike in energy use because you've reduced what the grid is already needing.
yeah.
And then you put it back on. And because we know how people's properties are behaving, you don't even know that it's happening. So that is,
Interesting.
it's
Yeah.
literally still in its infancy. It is a great idea. Give the guy his dues. It's
And
fantastic.
it'll come.
It will definitely
With,
come. But the view was that the business was going to sustain that because we had installed thousands of heat
yeah.
pumps.
So you had two sides to it. Your installation of heat pumps was supposed to be
Yeah.
funding that, and actually it took too much of that, and that. So
Yeah.
you've then taken the part that was profitable and restarted it and
Here we
still
are.
here and doing it very successfully.
Right, yeah. So from 2019, we doubled to 2020, 2021, 2022, and then we've grown every year since then, both in revenue, profit, and staff.
So
Yeah.
talk to me then about, because I was doing my research and I was on your website and I saw all the different locations that you're in. Talk to me about the challenges of being an installation business spread across, you're laughing. I take it there are challenges around that then, being spread across the country.
There are challenges, but there are challenges that we tipped the box out in the previous company and saw the worst of it. And so we already got to a straight edge on what was good, bad, or ugly, and what we were and were not going to do. The view of the previous company was like anywhere was open. We were like, no, we'll only operate within a couple of hours of our bases. We do go a bit further afield for bigger jobs, but what that gives us is customer service. If I'm based in Sheffield and you're based in Southampton and there's something wrong with your heat pump, it's an 8 hour drive. It's a 2 day for what could be something relatively straightforward. So I'm going to have a very hard discussion with you about how I'm going to charge you 800 quid for the privilege of coming down to maybe tweak something that, is just it's not an our fault thing. It's not a your fault thing
Mhm.
necessarily. It needs seeing to, and that's a long way to come. So 2 hours means that we can react. That means that we're not struggling to get to people who are further out of the field. So that was one of the things. We have two ways of running it. So it's not one size necessarily fits all. There was a view at one point that we should be the McDonald's. Your burger is your burger, your chips are your chips. Whereas actually, McDonald's have got a lawn sausage that I can't buy down here. At which point, my Scottish office does do things ever so slightly differently.
Mhm.
They have a base that the engineers go to in the morning. Down here, we don't do that. Our engineers, I've got a Doncaster guy, I've got a Cheshire guy, I've got a Derby guy. So they don't necessarily come here on a regular basis. Our stuff goes to them. So yeah, it's horses for courses. What works for one area, what doesn't work. The centralized back office function, that works. The way projects are coordinated, that works. So I've got a coordinator in Scotland, I have a coordinator down here. The accounts is one function, and then sales. So the sales director sits in Scotland. The operations director sits in Sheffield, but they look after both teams. Yeah, it's not without challenge. The biggest challenge to running an installer business, I have to say right now, is vans. I hate vans. I literally hate vans. Since the invention of the engine management system, it's just, yes. I know this sounds really bloody dull, but it's not, it doesn't seem to be a week at the moment without a van having some kind of light flashing that something needs to be dealt with. Other than that, we've worked really hard. Our motto, there's a lot of drive in the corporate world, aren't there, for vision and mission statements. And clearly, we always wanted to be the best renewable energy installer in the UK. Why wouldn't you have that as your strapline? But the underlying vision and mission statement for this company has always been have an easy life. And the best way that we can have an easy life is that if we sell it correctly, with a sales team who knows what they're doing, who's not over promising on the customer journey, and then we install it correctly the first time. We don't have inboxes full of people raging at us or being unhappy, which then is just a soul destroyer. I've been in that inbox and it is awful. It makes you cry.
Yeah.
Um, and then what it also means is that we can have a shutdown over Christmas. And the majority, there's a bit of on call and this and the like, but the majority of people, it's a shut off, shut down time. And this particular year, again, another year where we had 4 call outs over a 2 week shutdown period. Yeah, you can't ask for better than that because
Yeah. Well,
I,
that
I
sounds
fully
like an easy
know.
life. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
about that easy life, and that's not just so it's not, and it's about that for the people who work here too. Again, I have seen people in businesses work to stress levels that are incompatible with normal living, where overtime is a must, not a thing. We still get engineers on the way in who'll be like, "Oh, what's the overtime?" And we're like, "We try not to do overtime." because we value your work-life balance. There are clearly times when jobs run over for various reasons where we'll be like, bloody hell, has anybody worked Saturday? We've got this big thing, this has happened. It's hopefully done on a volunteer basis. We've never had to press gang anybody into it. But it's about people being able to shut off. It's about people being able to go home. And again, the people, Suzanne and Lee and Alan, who retired last year, we've all come out of that other business where it wasn't necessarily nice. It wasn't necessarily an easy life. And we all had sleepless nights over various different other things within that business.
I guess even the engineer who thinks he's joining a company that's got the opportunity for overtime, that's not an easy life because you'll have somebody at home going, "Oh, you're always working," and or they're relying on that extra income
Yeah.
to cover their bills and things. And that, yeah, that's not,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, and it's like staying away. We do stay away. It's clearly if you're 2 hours away from our office, then it's easier for our guys to stay there if they're on the site there for a week. And that's done on a kind of every engineer has a contract. They know that there's an element of staying away within their role. Anything over and above 6 weeks to stay away, there's an extra money in it for them. When it gets over 6 weeks, it's always done on a rotating basis, so it's not always the same guy. Although the younger single guys will put their hands up before the married guys, but that's great, absolutely fine, not a problem. But yeah, we tried to make it a nice experience for everybody in the company, and that is being a definite thing that we have aimed to do. So we're not working in silos. There are clearly departments that have their tasks, their actions, their processes, their things to do, their targets. It's not that, this, and again, in other companies where the salespeople don't speak to the technical people. The technical people can't ask the salespeople what it is that they've sold. It's just the whole, and so then there's no kind of understanding. And every single person who's like in senior roles has pretty much done everything in the business at one time or another, with the exception of installing a heat pump. I'd probably give it a decent go. I'm not sure I'd be the person who you'd want on your job.
I wanted to ask you about, I assume that your industry is relatively male heavy.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what's your experience then as a woman in
I
the
have to
industry?
say, as a woman in the position I have been, I have found nothing but a welcome environment. I do think, I don't know whether it's because it's still relatively niche, people are learning stuff every day, things are still changing. The standards that we were installing stuff to 5 years ago is now different to the way we would do it today. But yeah, now not only have I found it welcoming, I found it supportive, and I have a number of male mentors that I would always speak to and people who advocate for me within the industry. And I couldn't have done the things that I've done without those. And likewise, outside of that heavy male influence, there's still, what I call the dick swingers on LinkedIn. I know better than everybody. But I think you get that in any industry. And I think you get that in women too. There's a certain type of person, male or female, out there who just feels the need to feel better than you, whether they're male or female or whatever. But within the industry, again, on the other side is the women, and the women literally are like magnets. They were like, as soon as you see another woman, you're like, yes, quick, come again, which is really nice and really supportive. And all of the women there's a number of females. In fact, there's actually, I would think there's probably more females in and around this industry than maybe there would be in others in terms of being at the top of the business. And I guess that's because our industry is, yes, you generally, to get into heat pumps, you generally do a plumbing and heating apprenticeship. So that's the male-dominated view of the world is women cook and sew and do admin and men go and do stuff in with the hands, which the industry is trying to work on. But because we are so regulated and administrated, the people who sit behind those men are the wives, the girlfriends,
Yeah.
the sisters, and they are the ones who end up being the person kind of running
Actually running the show. Yeah.
actually running the show because it's the guy who's installing it. And we have a lot of people where I'm just like, when they talk about smaller installer businesses, and I'm like, they're sat in a plant room, they're installing, and then they're taking sales calls, and then they're talking to the suppliers, and then they're talking to somebody who might have an issue, and then they're trying to book a service and maintenance. And all of that gets taken off them by a competent, usually a woman, and they are the ones then who usually start running that business. There's the opportunity in this business for women who want to come in and really make differences in this sector, I think, is more open than the bit that delivers.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm aware that you have another meeting. So I've got one more question for you, Emma. What would be your advice to somebody following your footsteps, looking to take on, build a business like you've done?
I would say be open to learning. Every day is a school day. I had literally no plumbing. Okay, that's hot water. That's cold water, and that's where my stopcock is. I'm much more au fait talking about flow rates and volumizers now than I ever was. So you've really got to have an interest in whatever technology, whether it's this heat pumps, whether it's solar PV. You've got to. You've got to understand the technology or be interested in learning about the technology. So go learn about the technology. One of the things that I did as a small business, and it's interesting that other small businesses I don't think really do it, and I guess it's because of where I came from, was I've got Google alerts, what's going on in the industry. So I'm not just focused on this little space. I was always interested in what's happening in the sector, what's happening in the wide world, because actually this particular sector right now is still very much able to shift in good or bad directions based on legislation, based on policy decisions, based on the way the wind blows, literally the way the wind blows. And so if you are just focused on this and don't have an idea about that, you can find yourself caught off guard very quickly. But I would say that's for somebody, any business. Set
Yeah.
some Google alerts. If you're setting a new business up in HR or I don't know, pens or little knitted bears that give you a affirmation, make sure that you've got that Google analysis or those newsletters that are going to give you the insights to not just the wider industry, but other businesses in your sector. What are your frenemies doing? What are your competitors doing? Who's got that contract down the road from you and why have they got it? Who do they know that you don't know? Go and find out who they are. Introduce yourself. Because you know what? We do have a good frenemy installer base. So you can get the bellwether of what they're feeling and then compare that to how you're feeling. And I would say sometimes I find it a bore. You get invited to these networking events and stuff, but find the right ones and stick with them because those people know things that you don't know. And those people know people that you don't know. And those people who you don't know yet, with the things you don't know, might be the next best opportunity that you've ever walked into. And I also think that there's an element of the Kardashian element, which is fake it till you make it. Believe in yourself, go and do your research, become Heat Pump 101. Read that guide. That used to be the yellow and black guide, didn't it? An internet for everybody or whatever. And then get yourself in amongst those people and talk, you know what you're talking about. Because you will then find out more because people will correct you. Don't be afraid to be corrected. People will tell you something that you didn't know because they think you know what you're talking about. And then you go, oh, yeah, that's interesting. I can act on that. I can do something about that.
Yes, but that's a really interesting, yeah, don't be afraid to be corrected.
Don't be afraid to be
Yeah.
corrected. Yeah, absolutely. And don't take it personally either. If you're getting into a new industry, there's always people's footsteps bigger than yours that, and they'll have made mistakes. So don't be afraid to be pulled up on yours or understand where your thinking was off if somebody makes a comment.
Mhm.
Don't take it personally. Get a thick skin. But I think women have got thick skins in the main, haven't we?
I think, yeah, we've had to develop those, haven't we?
We
Yeah.
have, we have.
Emma, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much. We've covered so much in a short time, and I could talk to you all day. It's
Yeah, no,
been,
it's been lovely actually. Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me to do this.
oh, you're very welcome. Thank you to you for listening to Scale Her Up. If you enjoyed this episode, follow the show and leave a review. It helps more female business owners find us. Come and join our Scale Her Up Facebook community to get support, accountability, and connection with women who get it. And remember, only 1 in 3 UK entrepreneurs are female, and men are still 5 times more likely to scale their business to beyond £1 million in turnover than women. When we start and scale our businesses to the same extent as men, we'll add 250 billion to the UK economy and create millions of jobs. Ladies, you can do it, and your business can make a massive difference.